Should I do hood down?
Ooh, I'm
down?
here. Ooh, shit. Hi, hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am Black Child Ascending in an absolutely lovely collaboration with Carmen. Carmen is a Brooklyn based interdisciplinary artist with credits on Hulu and who has worked with groups like New Dramatists, Portland Playhouse, and the Farm Theater. We have been friends for about a year now and have collaborated on a couple of projects, but never a video essay. So this should be fun. Take it away, Carmen.
All right, so today we're going to be discussing Euphoria Season 2, Episode 1, Trying to Get to Heaven Before They Close the Door. This episode was a highly anticipated return for Euphoria from their COVID hiatus, sans those 2 extra episodes we got. This episode was directed by Sam Levinson. It was written by Sam Levinson, Ron Leesham from the original Israeli series, and Daphne Levin from the original Israeli series. Fun fact, Euphoria is based on an Israeli show of the same name, and it takes inspiration from Sam Levinson's personal experience dealing with drug use and sobriety.
Sam Levinson states in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, I had gone to sit down with HBO's head of drama, Francesca Orsi. I asked her what she liked about the Israeli series, and she said what a raw and honest portrayal it is of drugs and being young and everything. So I started talking about my own personal history with drugs. I was a drug addict for many years, and I've been clean for many years now. Trying to create this character that is just constantly trying to navigate the world of just hiding emotions and trying to either enhance the joy or kind of dampen the sadness or darkness around this. Sam Levinson is trying to portray the reality of hiding emotions and really emphasize the fact that when you are going through that turbulent teenage years, it is heightened. Everything feels like it's the end of the world. So he wanted to really create that sensation.
In the article, the big difference between HBO's Euphoria and the original Israeli version by Adiran Hennigran on HAARETZ website, Adiran states the original is far more empathetic to its young characters, who are also more likable than their American equivalents. The problem is that the HBO show seems to view its characters as lab rats that it can do unpleasant things to and then record the results. Adiran also states it is well documented that Generation Z is having less sex and consuming less alcohol and drugs than previous generations. But it would seem that this memo never reached the HBO executives or Levinson, who himself suffered from drug addiction and depression as a teenager, which helps explain why this element is the most convincing part of his show. I also recently saw a Jeremy O'Harris TikTok in which someone had said that Euphoria should be set in a middle school, and then he stitched it saying basically, yeah, this I had best friends that were pregnant in 6th grade. So I mean, the shit does happen to young people, but it definitely does not feel like an accurate portrayal of being that age, at least not in my experience.
It's big money sensationalizing HBO, who is so money hungry that they made Generation, a show that was exactly like Euphoria, fit into the same niche of Euphoria, yet got canceled because nobody liked it as much as Euphoria. That's just HBO for you. Here's a quick recap of season 2, episode 1. We learn about Fez's past and the importance of his grandma and Ashtray, which must protect Ashtray. We are also reunited with all of our favorite cast members of season 1. We are introduced to the musician / singer Dominic Fike, beautiful singer, whose character's name is Elliot. There are some intense moments when we encounter Fez's dealer.
Rue is introduced to heroin. Nate and Cassie hook up in the bathroom. There's some possible foreshadowing to a Lexi-Fez relationship. Cassie and McKay finalize the end of their relationship. Rue and Jules reconnect and kiss after a very sobering conversation. Fez beats Nate to a pulp in front of everyone. And now for our breakdown. So firstly, Ebony and I were curious about the emotional manipulation tactics and the sensationalized life of these supposed teens that Euphoria creates their wide fan base on. I was inspired by this video essay by a creator. We'll link their video in. I was inspired by this video and the ways that it talked about, people called that movie out as being emotionally manipulative to the audience, trying to get the audience to feel things. But then this person was in the video is saying basically that that's what all art does, and if it's successful art, you just don't notice that you're being emotionally manipulated. Great example of this very emotional manipulation that happens in the show, and that I was able to definitely notice. I don't know if everyone noticed it, but I certainly did, and a lot of people I've talked to have also picked up on it, with Cassie and Nate in the car. Yes, so this scene starts with Cassie already being drunk and upset, and then Nate sees her drunk and upset and decides that he's going to take advantage of that, which already made me a little uncomfortable. And they're drinking and driving, and you're watching this scene and feeling like you're about to watch this horrendous car crash, which also there was another YouTuber who pointed out something that I had totally forgotten about, but Cassie's dad is an alcoholic and was in a DUI, so that adds an even bigger layer of discomfort to the scene. Like at first you can see that Cassie's not into it, and then she, leans her head out of the window and takes her panties off, and suddenly she's into it. But I kept waiting for something to happen, and it never did, and I feel like it was disappointing to see the lack of consequences for their actions. It was just felt like a waste of tension and plot and the audience's emotions, honestly.
Yeah, it didn't add to their character arcs. Of it just kind of, there was a lot of information build up and set up about this, of like, if we're gonna have this whole history of a DUI, history of an alcoholic father, then why are we gonna have such a triggering event happen, which also kind of probably leads to like the fact that like she has like a freaking panic attack for the whole rest of the episode, which is such a build of tension for nothing to happen. She was in such distress for it to just be played off, which is really interesting, because it's like we keep talking about how like creative the show is about taking care of the characters' emotions and going through a thorough analysis of their emotions. Yet if they're a side character, they can be going through the most distressing thing, and yet if they're not Rue and Jules in this relationship, we can't really focus on them. As a society, we're kind of projecting a lot on this Euphoria. We're getting so much hype around it. The TikToks are crazy about it. And we are so excited for the show of this Black lesbian character, a trans woman character. And yet, what are we actually getting out of this other than the visual representation? What lessons are we learning? What triumph or accurate character arcs are we dealing with? We're talking about how much we connect to it, but what is there actually to connect to if these characters are all unrelatable and not actually following logical or even emotional processes?
I was watching this video that a therapist who specializes in child's mental health and addiction care did a reaction to, it was all season 1 stuff from Euphoria, but I still found it very informative. And he pointed out the fact that when we see Rue get diagnosed, it's for doing a totally normal child's behavior, which is just counting. And she's diagnosed with OCD and bipolar at an age that there's no way she would have received that diagnosis, and definitely not with that little of attention paid. So that also brings up the question of, we want this representation, and yet it's not the representation that reflects reality.
We're getting so much mental health like inspiration from this. Why are we showing the yeah, the most inaccurate things.
15 reasons why, like if it was like
Yeah.
that level.
We'll go into this later, but like the amount of room that there is for the specific things of Euphoria to exist. The episode that stood out to me the most in Euphoria season 1 was the episode about bipolar disorder. When we're talking about mental illnesses, it's very, very beautiful and visually stunning. But when we talk about mental health, like for instance, the episode with in COVID where her and her sponsor are talking for an hour and a half, that is the least visually appealing episode. It has the least camera movements, and it's like, what are we trying to hype up? The whole Rue and Jules conversation, they literally just had to talk about like, when's the last time you were sober, and like, or like, when's the last time you were clean or whatever. And then like when she kisses Jules again, there, she's not sober for that.
I brought this point up to Ebony that in the episode, the heroin was used in a similar literary sense to the phenomenon Chekhov's gun. So the phenomenon Chekhov's gun, for those of you who don't know, he was a Russian playwright, and he had a trope in his plays in which if a character shows, if there's a gun shown on stage, you know it's gonna go off at some point later in the play. This is actually also talked about in season 3 of You. There's a good real world example, real time example. So in a similar way, the minute that heroin was mentioned, I knew it was gonna become a bigger thing. It was pretty clear to me. However, I never saw the decision that Rue made to use it, which is a pretty big decision, especially considering the fact that she almost overdoses. We don't see the lead up to. If I were making the show, I think I would want to treat something so serious with the attention that it deserves instead of using it as another tool to emotionally manipulate the audience.